I was born into a Rome that already knew my family's name. The Julii were ancient, patrician, proud. We traced our blood all the way back to Aeneas, and through him to the goddess Venus herself. That was the story, at least. And in Rome, the story you tell about yourself matters as much as the truth. My father died when I was 15, and that loss shaped everything that followed. There was no slow inheritance of power, no comfortable path laid out before me. I had a name, a mother who believed in me with a ferocity that bordered on terrifying, and a city full of men who would rather see me fail than rise. That was enough. That was, in fact, all I ever needed. My early years were not easy, and I want to be clear about that, because history tends to remember only the triumphs and polish away the struggles. When the dictator Sulla came to power, he declared my family enemies of the state. I was barely a young man, newly married to Cornelia, daughter of one of Sulla's greatest rivals. Sulla demanded I divorce her. I refused. A dictator, at the height of his absolute power, looked at a young man with nothing and told him to bend, and I looked back and said no. They took my priesthood, they seized my inheritance, they put a price on my head, and I fled into the countryside to hide and survive. Some men are shaped by their victories. I was shaped by the years I spent learning that I could lose everything and still not break. Eventually, allies interceded and Sulla pardoned me, though reportedly with the warning that they saw in me many Marius, my uncle, the great general, the man who had reformed the Roman army and risen from common birth to become the most powerful man in the Republic. Sulla was right to be uneasy. I had watched Marius my entire childhood. I had absorbed everything, the way he spoke to soldiers, the way he inspired loyalty in common men, the way he understood that an army is not just a weapon, but a community, and that a commander who eats and suffers alongside his men will always extract more from them than one who rules from a distant tent. That lesson never left me. I went east to begin my military career, and it was there that something happened which revealed my character more clearly than any battle ever could. I was sailing across the Aegean Sea when pirates captured my ship and took me hostage. They demanded 20 talents of silver for my ransom. I laughed at them and told them I was worth at least 50. I want you to understand, I was their prisoner, entirely at their mercy, and I was insulted by how little they valued me. While my companions sent word to raise the ransom, I stayed with those pirates for nearly 40 days. I told them stories. I exercised with them on the deck. I wrote poetry and made them listen to it. And when they laughed, I told them calmly that once I was free, I would return and crucify every single one of them. They thought I was joking. I was not joking. The moment the ransom was paid and I stepped off that ship, I organized a fleet, hunted them down, captured them, and did exactly what I had promised. That was the first lesson I ever taught the world about what kind of man I was. I never made an empty threat, and I never made an empty promise. Back in Rome, I threw myself into politics with the same total commitment I gave to everything else. I spent money I did not have to win favor with the Roman people. Gladiatorial games, public feasts, building projects, legal defenses for the powerless. I accumulated debts that would have crushed any ordinary man, because I understood something that my rivals did not. The Roman people were the real power in the Republic, and a man who made them love him could do things that no amount of money or senatorial influence could achieve. My rivals in the Senate sneered at my methods. They called me a populist, a demagogue, a man willing to say anything to the crowd. What they could not understand was that I genuinely believed the crowd deserved to be spoken to. Rome was not just the Senate. Rome was the million people who lived in its streets, worked its docks, fought its wars, and died with its name on their lips. I formed an alliance with two of the most powerful men in Rome, Pompey, the great general, and Crassus, the wealthiest man the Republic had ever produced. It was simply three men who recognized that separately they could be outmaneuvered, and together they could not be stopped. Pompey brought military prestige. Crassus brought money. I brought something neither of them possessed in quite the same measure: the ability to make people believe that what was good for me was also good for Rome. That gift, more than any sword or any coin, was my true weapon, and I was about to take it to Gaul, where I would forge it into an empire.
Gaul was not a simple assignment. It was a vast, wild, dangerous territory populated by tribes of extraordinary ferocity. Warriors who had, centuries before my time, sacked Rome itself and left it in ashes. The Senate sent me there partly as a reward, and partly, I suspect, because some of them hoped the Gauls would do what Sulla had failed to do, and simply remove me from the equation. Instead, I spent 8 years turning those campaigns into the greatest military education in the history of the ancient world. I did not just conquer Gaul, I studied it, breathed it, learned every river and forest and tribal alliance, and then I dismantled it piece by piece with a combination of overwhelming force, political manipulation, and the kind of personal courage that soldiers remember long after the battle is over. My legions became an extension of my own thinking. I pushed them harder than any commander before me, and in return I gave them something that most Roman generals considered beneath them: my genuine respect. I knew their names. I remembered which century had held the line at a particular river crossing, which centurion had refused to retreat when retreat would have been sensible. I ate what they ate when supply lines failed, which they often did in the deep forests of northern Gaul. And when battle came, I was there, not watching from a safe distance on a hill, but there, in the thickest part of the chaos, where men could see me and draw something from my presence that no tactical order could provide. Fear is contagious, so is courage, and I made it my business to be the most visible source of courage on any battlefield I stood on. The siege of Alesia was the moment that defined the Gallic Wars. Vercingetorix, the most gifted enemy commander I ever faced, had unified the Gallic tribes into a single fighting force and retreated to the hilltop fortress of Alesia with 80,000 warriors. I did something that military historians still discuss with a kind of disbelief. I besieged the besiegers. I built 2 walls simultaneously, one facing inward to contain Vercingetorix, and one facing outward to hold off the relief army of 250,000 Gauls coming to rescue him. My men were surrounded, outnumbered, exhausted, and running low on food, and we held. When the relief army finally broke and scattered, and Vercingetorix rode out of the gates of Alesia and threw his weapons at my feet, it was not just a military victory, it was the completion of the conquest of an entire civilization. 8 years, 800 towns, 300 tribes, 1 million people brought under Roman order. That was Gaul. And then came the Rubicon. I want to speak about this moment carefully because it is the moment people most misunderstand about me. The Senate, led by my enemies and manipulated by Pompey, who had by then turned against me, issued an ultimatum: give up my command, disband my armies, and return to Rome as a private citizen. What they did not say out loud, but what every man in Rome understood perfectly, was that the moment I crossed back into the city without my legions, I would be arrested, tried, and destroyed. The ultimatum was not a legal instrument. It was an execution warrant
dressed in the language of law. So yes, I stood on the northern bank of the Rubicon River on a January night in 49 BC, and I made a choice that I knew would change the world. I looked at my officers. I looked at the river. I said the words that have echoed down through every century since. The die is cast, and I crossed. What followed was a civil war that I won with a speed that stunned even my supporters. Pompey fled to Greece, then to Egypt, where he was murdered on a beach by men who thought they were doing me a favor. They were not. I wept when they brought him his head. He had been my ally, my son-in-law, a great man who had simply made the mistake of choosing the wrong side of history. In Egypt, I met Cleopatra, and I want the world to understand that my relationship with her was not merely personal. She was one of the most politically intelligent human beings I have ever encountered. A woman who spoke 9 languages, who understood the economics of her kingdom with the precision of a philosopher, and who saw in our alliance the same thing I saw: mutual survival and mutual advantage, dressed in something that also happened to be beautiful. I returned to Rome as its undisputed master. I was named dictator, then dictator in perpetuity, a title that my enemies used to paint me as a king in disguise, though I refused the crown 3 times when Mark Antony offered it publicly at the festival of Lupercalia. I reformed the calendar. I reformed the Senate. I restructured the grain supply, founded new colonies, began an ambitious program of public works that would have transformed the physical face of Rome. I had plans, enormous plans, for roads, libraries, canals, campaigns against Parthia in the east. I was not finished. I was, if anything, just beginning. And that, I think, is truly what frightened them.
The Ides of March, the 15th day of March in the year 44 BC. I had been warned. The soothsayer in the street, the strange dreams my wife Calpurnia had suffered through the night before, the persistent whispers that something was being planned. She begged me not to go to the Senate that day. I almost listened. I sat in my house that morning and I considered staying home, which is something I have never admitted before, because it does not fit the image of a man who feared nothing. Then Decimus Brutus, one of my most trusted friends, a man I loved like a brother, came to my door and gently, warmly, persuasively told me that the Senate was waiting, that postponing would look like weakness, that Rome needed to see me. And I went. There were 23 of them, and they had planned it with care. They surrounded me near the theater of Pompey, beneath the very statue of the man I had defeated in civil war, and they began. The first blow came from Casca. I grabbed his arm. Then the others closed in, and what I remember, what I will always carry, is not the pain, but the faces. Men I had known for decades, men I had promoted, defended, saved, forgiven, men who had eaten at my table and laughed at my jokes. And among them, near the end, Marcus Junius Brutus, a man whose mother I had loved, a man I had pardoned after Pharsalus, when I could easily have had him killed. When I saw his face among them, I stopped fighting. I pulled my toga over my head and I let it happen. Not from weakness, from the recognition that some defeats are too intimate to resist. What happened next is the part they did not plan for. My death did not end what I had built, it ignited it. Mark Antony stood before the Roman people at my funeral and read my will, which left my gardens to the public and 300 sesterces to every Roman citizen. He showed them my toga, torn and bloodied. The crowd did not mourn quietly. They burned. They took my body and cremated it in the forum itself, tearing up furniture and market stalls to feed the flames,
and then they turned on the conspirators with a fury that drove them from Rome forever. Brutus and Cassius fled east and died within 2 years. The republic they claimed to be saving died with them. And my heir, young Octavian, whom I had named in my will, he took everything I had built and turned it into the Roman Empire, the most enduring political structure the Western world has ever known. I want to speak now not as a conqueror or a politician, but simply as a man looking back across the full length of a life that was never, not for a single day, ordinary. I made mistakes. I was arrogant at times, in ways that cost me. I was too trusting of men I should have watched more carefully, and not trusting enough of warnings I should have heeded. I loved people. Cornelia, my first wife, whose death broke something in me that I spent the rest of my life pretending was not broken. Calpurnia, who was wiser about danger than I ever gave her credit for. Cleopatra, who was my equal in a world that did not believe women could have equals. I had a son, Caesarion, whom I could never fully claim in the way I wanted to. There are griefs in a great life that the history books tend to skip over, and I have carried all of mine in silence for 2,000 years. But if I am asked whether I would do it again, cross the Rubicon, fight the wars, take the risks, trust the men who betrayed me, the answer is yes. Without a moment of hesitation, yes. Because the alternative was a smaller life, and a smaller life was never something I could have survived. Every humiliation, every exile, every battle, every sleepless night in a tent on the wrong side of the Rhine, all of it was necessary. All of it was the price of becoming the thing I needed to become. A man who crossed a river and changed the world. A man whose name became a title. A man who 2,000 years after his death is still being argued about, still being studied, still being invoked whenever someone wants to describe the very outermost limit of what a human being can achieve. The die is cast. It always was. I simply had the courage to throw it.